Sublime magnificence.
Hey guys, you know who it is, what's going on, when it's happening, where it's at, and why we're here today. How you doing? It is I, the sublimely magnificent Big Ugly himself, Omari Ellis Feo Grande on YouTube, back with another episode of This Guy Hasn't Seen, and I'm joined once again by my co-host and running mate, one of my best friends in the world, El Director himself, Bill Smith.
Thank you so much for having me, Omari. I'm so glad to be back. We're rolling through some we've had a good run. We've had a good run here, and I'm curious if it keeps going, because this week I chose a big one. Now I feel like one of the things we haven't learned it here. I think it's kind of already, it's just common knowledge. Comedies can wither on the vine and die. They don't have a long shelf life often. When something may be funny now is not funny in 5 years, 10 years.
Very product of their time.
Right. So I wonder what something that is going on 50 years could possibly feel like. What many consider one of the greatest American films of all time, one of the greatest American comedies. I was just scrolling through just a moment ago to double check to see if it was on the AFI 100. But this week we're covering Young Frankenstein. From 1974, an American grandson of the infamous scientist struggling to prove that his grandfather was not as insane as people believe, is invited to Transylvania, where he discovers the process that reanimates a dead body. It is written and directed. It is written by Gene Wilder and Mel Brooks, and it is directed by Mel Brooks, and it stars Gene Wilder, with also Madeline Kahn and Marty Feldman and Terry Garr, as well as Peter Boyle, Cloris Leachman, all kinds of great folks. This is a classic, and not even an Omari classic.
No, I'm like, this is a classic. Like,
this is a classic. I mean, I feel like any classic still has to kind of be like,
okay.
People say,
gotcha.
But I mean, this is what many people consider Mel Brooks' best film. I know a lot of people will go back to Blazing Saddles. This is for sure his most narrative work. It's the only one that he doesn't appear on screen in visually, but it is what many would consider his best work, and Mel Brooks is just a pillar of comedy in American history, I would say.
I like pillar.
It's not to speak on how I would personally feel about that comedy and him. I don't know. I just, you could accept that he's just one of those people,
a staple
in history. Yeah.
You got, if you're talking American comedy, you kind of have to mention
where are you on Mel Brooks and not seeing this?
All right, so Mel Brooks is one of those people who, kind of like you said, a lot of his films are considered classics among classics. Comedy-wise, of course. I didn't see a lot of Mel Brooks stuff as a youth. I only became vaguely familiar with his existence just because I'm me and I like to stay in my little corner of the world. Often I didn't really hear about him until high school. That doesn't mean his stuff wasn't out there. As I got older, I was like, oh, that's him? That's him too? That's him too? Oh my goodness. but I wasn't aware of Mel Brooks until around high school when I think they had the Producers movie come out or something like that.
The remake.
Yeah. And I saw that movie. I saw the remake of The Producers, and that's what I think that was the first full-length Mel Brooks thing I saw. And I started like looking into other things and never really watched another one. Well, won't say I didn't watch a single one of his other works from start to finish, but often what I saw more of was clips from things than I did.
Did you watch
movie.
the original, or did you watch the one starring Matthew Broderick?
Matthew Broderick.
Mel Brooks did not direct that.
Oh, okay.
He directed the original, and then that was a
gotcha.
That was a reinterpretation.
Gotcha. Well, I think around the same time, I think
he had some involved, like he helped.
Yeah,
he gave his blessing.
Gotcha. And around the same time, people were talking about, like, I think there was like a play, or one of the common plays at the Fox or something would be The Producers. It's like the Producers.
Yeah,
and it became always mention Mel Brooks when that came up, so I always associated him with that. But you got a good point.
He is the writer creator of the story and everything, and then directed the original in the 70s.
Understood.
But yeah. So I only asked that to maybe say then maybe you've never seen a Mel Brooks film.
Maybe not. This particular movie
didn't we talk about Spaceballs? You've seen Spaceballs.
I'm pretty sure I saw it, but to go with my earlier point of not necessarily seeing 100% of the movie, I'm not sure that I have. I feel like it's definitely been turned on if I paid attention to the whole movie and everything. Like, I know the lines and stuff, your references, your Schwartz is as big as mine, and all of that. But, and that Rick Moranis is the Darth Vader of it, obviously. But with this movie, I've had opportunities to watch it in the past. I think at school it got turned on once, and I kind of lost interest and stopped watching early. Like, I knew I was expecting to go into expectations and stuff with this. I knew to expect a Fronkensteen mispronunciation. Even if I hadn't have seen like the early part of that movie, I had it mentioned to me before. It's colloquial, like it's pronounced Frankenstein. So there was stuff like that, but I never got past like the opening like bit in the past. And I think part of it is because when I was younger, I definitely had a bias against black and white. Black and white meant old, which meant lame. Not necessarily, but it meant old, and thus I probably wouldn't be as interested. And when it started off I don't think I had the same appreciation for comedy that I do now. Not to say it's more or less than I used to, but the same appreciation for what's considered comedy. So it didn't grasp me early in the past, so I never finished it. But watching this, I saw a couple things where it was like, that's where that comes from, or I remember this one thing because I've seen this clip before. Like Abby Normal, for instance. But yeah, so I was looking forward to it. I loved one of the movies you proposed or asked had I seen was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, also starring Gene Wilder. And I love Gene Wilder in that one. I prefer that version of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory to the Johnny Depp one. Fight me.
I don't think anybody will. I don't know if anybody will.
Some youngins I've heard at my job have, but I think that's just generational gap at that point.
Yeah. So I mean, there's I at the end of the day, you know, I can't.
It's good enough. It's more book accurate.
I understand when people have the inability to watch anything made before Jurassic Park. Like, Jurassic Park is the moniker. It is the timeline point of when everything looks good. moving forward. Everything looks new
Yeah.
and of the same time, and things only get increasingly, now
Yeah.
you have super high def IMAX insaneness with an Oppenheimer 70 millimeter print.
Yeah.
But you know, I I can I can't fault people. Like, that's not my taste, but I'm not going to hate on anybody that's just like, I just can't watch old shit.
Yeah. That's
Because
entirely
I
fair.
mean, because it looks, you have to accept, you have to like, because we're still we're part of the last generation that still had only that. Like, we remember when all of our monitors were square, not rectangles. Everything that we watch stuff on were squares.
Square, sometimes beveled in.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, then you got a fancy thing.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. Well, not beveled in, but like the contours of the TV screen.
Yeah.
So sometimes that
For
messed
sure.
with the perspective of like what you're watching. Get the line going up and down.
I was talking with my wife just yesterday that my very first TV in my bedroom, I was very my mother was very good to me and allowed me to have a TV that she tried to control as much as possible. And I would watch Mama's Family before I went to bed almost every single night, but it was a crank dial television that had the UHF dial on it and a big power button that you had to pull out or push in, and it like boom, like powered up and down. Yeah.
I remember
Anyway,
those
we're
TVs.
that old. We are that
those
old.
TVs.
So yeah, it's were you prepared for it to look? I mean, because not only is it made in 1974, but Mel Brooks, Gene Wilder, and their cinematographer intentionally made it as if they were making it in 1930 to be like an actual like in their heart of hearts. Obviously, this has some comedy lean to it because all of them are comedians, but in their heart of hearts, they are making a sequel to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. And they're shooting it and filming it as if they were in the 1930s. Were you prepared for that level of it? Like, because you said you've seen Fronkensteen.
Yeah, I was not prepared for it in that, and also my memories of the movie before today were in color. So
it's funny because this film has never been colorized.
That's why I thought it was weird. I was like, is it gonna switch to color
shortly before they were gonna start filming? The studio who was backing this film had just kind of convinced Mel Brooks, because he didn't think anything of it, that they were just going to shoot on normal film and then they would desaturate it later. And then his cinematographer came in very late in the game and basically is like, hey, Mel, so I just went and looked at the stock and it's normal film. He's like, yeah, they're going to decolorize it later. He's like, no, they're not. It's 1974. They're not going to put out a black and white movie. They're going to fucking put out that color. They're going to put it out in color. So they trashed it all and bought black and white film that they would have used in 1930. So yeah, this film, like, you would have to colorize it.
Okay.
Like, literally, like, paint it to get it colored. But yeah, they famously wanted you to view it in black and white.
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned earlier, that's probably why I didn't finish it, is because it was in black and white. But for some reason, my mind had always remembered things from the movie in color.
Yeah.
And I know someone that, if it wasn't at school, I know a mutual friend of ours. Do we use people's real names on this show? I forget.
I don't think it matters.
Well, we had.
You don't have to use their first. You don't have to use their full name.
Yeah, it was the tall one, part of the Orange Cast, and it was the tall one.
Oh, yeah. The cucumber.
Yeah, yeah. Larry the cucumber.
Larry the cucumber,
and Larry the loser lizard. Yeah. Two characters named Larry. What do you know? Anyway. Yeah, him. He was a fan of it, and he tried to get me to watch it at one point as well. I just didn't finish it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, Larry was a comedic genius. Comedic genius. I don't know if I've ever met somebody as just purely originally funny as Larry was in his moments.
I will thoroughly agree with that one.
Yeah. So this totally, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. So I know he tried to get me to watch it at one point. But yeah, with that, I'll go ahead and get started with the initial reactions and jump into the movie. So yeah, old style opening credits when you just got the music playing and it's literally like a still shot with just
of what's probably like a painting. Honestly, it's probably not even like, it's just a shot of a painting. Yeah.
Really fucking music playing. I'm like, oh man, these old style opening credits. Like, which would you say them purposely shooting it like it's a 1930s thing? Like, part of me had to remember. I'm like, this is 1974. I'm pretty sure they were not shooting movies like this at that time. So this has to be intentional.
Like literally the exact same year he puts out Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
Like I'm not alive in 1974. I haven't gotten the details on why the fuck on IMDb Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles are both listed as being released in 1974, because those are two giant bangers. Those are definitely the two films that everyone talks about are his best films. Like, there are people that love Spaceballs, but Spaceballs is garbage. It's garbage. There's people that love History of the World Part 1. I'm not going to say that's garbage, but it's not one of the best. It's a collection of skits. It's all about Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles. And they came out in the fucking same year. It's insane. But to your point, Blazing Saddles looks nothing like this.
Yeah. And I think that's also why part of me was like, so the movie's going to color in at some point? No, it's black and white the whole time. But I got used to it quick. But yeah, just starting off with the movie, the thing in the class, immediately with the Fronkensteen. And myself, I didn't realize at first that it is still Frankenstein. I thought that was just them saying, like, yes, this is how the word name should actually be pronounced thing. I didn't realize it was his denial of him trying to deny his family while claiming his family. So it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, Fronkensteen. To be fair, that probably is how the word's pronounced. Okay, Fronkensteen. Because he sounded genuinely offended when people would say Frankenstein. He's like, it's Fronkensteen. Which, as somebody who has had to remind people that there's an I at the end of his name numerous times, I felt I felt the salt behind, or the salt / frustration behind, it's Frankenstein. So I was convinced that that's the actual pronunciation of the word, but no, immediately as he's doing his early scene with the class, him talking about Mr. Hilltops, whose legs were skinny as fuck. Like, his legs were about as wide as my fucking arm, or my forearm. This part, my fucking fingers can fit around. But his whole scene, like the various little mini monologues and his dialogue, just reminded me just how much I like Gene Wilder as an actor. His
Oh my God.
delivery is just fantastic with everything that he like does, you know. And obviously he gets the telegram. He's saying goodbye to his wife, and she's doing the whole, not on the lips. Just never miss it. Don't mess with the hair. Don't touch the coat. And I typed in this thing. I was like, this wife is cheating on him. There's no way she is simply that vain. There's no way she's that vain. It's a funny scene, but there's no way she's this vain and she's not cheating on him. She's going to a date right after that. Like, I was convinced. Now, yes, to semi-spoil stuff going on later, I did realize that there was a very heavy chance that he'd end up being the one cheating. Once, you know, once Elizabeth, I believe, comes into play, I think is the name of the character. Not Elizabeth. Elizabeth's the wife.
Oh yeah. Terry Garr's character.
Yeah.
The
assistant, Inga. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get over there. I love that the old people. I love the classic comedy shit they had going on. And to go over every single one would this be like a 3-hour video, and so I won't.
They've got bits. There's
the bits throughout it. It was just. I got a chuckle like almost every 30-45 seconds. I'm exaggerating, but damn. Like on the train, for instance, just going there. He's doing so and so, so and so. Well, then let him. Okay, next stop is this. Because to like in Germany. Lawson. Next stop, Transylvania. It's like the exact same argument in 2 languages. I was like, okay. Yeah. I had to rewind it to be like, I don't speak German, but let me see with what little bit of language knowledge I have if this sounds like they're having the exact same conversation. And because the cadence was like exactly the same, it's like, yeah, they're having the exact same argument.
Yeah, that's the bit, I'm sure. Shortly after Igor picks them up from the train, well, there's the walk this way bit, and then there's werewolf. Werewolf. I think when they said that, I think that's when I typed so many classic style gags. Cause it feels very for me, like my reference point, it feels very Looney Tunes kind of comedy.
Very, I associated with being like old folk comedy, which with me laughing that much, I guess just shows my age is happening. Because I'm just like some of these jokes, and some of them are like the corniest shit. Hello, doctor. Would you like to roll in the hay?
Yeah, that one's a little. That was
fucking roll in the hay. I'm like, okay, what are we doing? And then when he's in like I meeting Igor, and just I love his back and forth with Gene throughout the movie, but like especially that older thing like Frankenstein. Do you pronounce it Frederick? No, Frederick Frankenstein. Igor, it's Igor. What?
They assured me it was Igor.
He's like, I can do something about the hum. What hum? That is one of my favorite running gags in the fucking movie. Is the hum
him moving it around,
and him just being like, "Wasn't that on the other side? What's on the other side?" Yeah. But when he's like sitting there alone, and you start hearing the soundtrack come in, it's like. I'm like, okay, he's already had the nightmare and shit. And I'm like, okay, they're just setting the mood. And then this nigga goes, what's that music? I was like, okay, I can't with this movie. What's that music? I'm like, it was just great. Just the lab discovery scene was cool, everything. But like, it was just laughs left and right. Shit. Inspector Kemp, when they finally bring him in, I'm like, oh, this motherfucker right here.
I mean, well, and like, you know, like one of the things is because it's old, and we've seen so much shit after that, like you have to remember that this is like one of the first ones doing the bookcase bit. Like the bookcase bit is fucking classic because it's like they're like the first ones to do it. And now we've seen it a million times in a different, like if you got a spinning bookcase, you're going to do a bookcase joke about it spinning too fast or it trying to spin on you or all of that kind of stuff. What's the mechanism to spin it?
The second she went, put the candle back, because of like what you said, where everybody's done it. I was like, oh no. I thought it was funny that she wanted to come back, but my immediate thought in my head was, oh, this is gonna be another 2 minutes of them trying to get it to do so and so. Because nowadays that's what people will do. They'll take it like, did you get the reference yet? Okay, now we're gonna we're gonna like double the joke and take it too far. So I was like, oh, they're gonna take it too far. I liked it just because, as I've mentioned on this show, I try to watch things wanting to like them, regardless of how I felt about them before we bring this on. You're in
general a pretty positive viewer.
Yes, and so this was easy to do, and I was easy to watch it with the mind spec of, yeah, I may have heard some of these jokes before, but rather than them being played out, like you said, they're pioneering the things when it came out. And so I was able to look at them as opposed to, here's a fucking sight gag again, or Abbott and Costello style werewolf, werewolf, doo-doo-doo. I was just like, classic, as opposed to this shit again. Write some original material, guys. It's all original material. Like, there's no point in me even thinking that way with it. Fucking, and yeah, some of the things you see, like when he decides eventually he's gonna make a monster after denying the whole idea or trying to deny his familyhood, he finds his grandfather's notes and he's like, I'm gonna make a monster my damn self. And when they finally made it, the monologue he has while he's like bringing it alive, fantastic. Just I did years ago, life was done. And again, just to talk about Gene Wilder and his deliveries of things, he goes from like getting ready to just, sorry guys if you saw me wince, I'm in pain, but he goes like, he snaps into serious mode just
right. It's, I mean, this this film is, I mean, I don't know anybody who doesn't love Gene Wilder, but like if you like him and Willy Wonka, he's doing all of those same things again, and even getting to be a little bit more broad. Like up until this point, he's kind of the smooth, cool, smart, straight man to other people's ridiculousness, and now he's getting to go big and broad, almost like the tunnel scene in Willy Wonka that's this entire movie
pretty much. And I love the tunnel scene in Willy Wonka. There was a point when I was younger that I had it like memorized because I just had to keep watching the thing the first time that I was watching it. And
100% heard you recite the entire thing. I have, the second you said that, I was like, yep. That is I can purely see that. Like it absolutely happened in front of me.
So that was great. Oh, another funny running gag that I very much appreciated almost immediately, like the second time it happened, and it happened the whole movie. Frau Blucher and the horses. And the horses. Every time they said her name.
What name?
Frau Blucher.
It's more of like a witch laugh. I can't do a horse neigh.
But yeah, every time it was just like, okay, that's a great gag.
Yeah.
Speaking of her with the fucking violin when she was trying to reveal herself, the way they incorporated the soundtrack into like the movie for certain gags and shit, just, and you, yes, yeah. And she would like turn and pose with each thing, so you could definitely tell it's her doing the fucking soundtrack for the scene. It's great. But yeah, the Abby Normal, like I said, I saw the Abby Normal scene, and the second he was in the lab and he just like grabbed it and he turns to the camera like, it's this one that I'm supposed to grab, because Igor just loves playing with the audience throughout the fucking movie.
Yeah.
He's just
he's the only one that breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah, like the third or fourth time that the hump thing gets brought up, he literally turns and like winks to the camera. He's like, and he's like, he's like, I got him. But when he points at the Hans Gruber or whatever brain that he was supposed to get.
Oh, yeah.
He ends up.
Hans Gruber.
It's not Hans Gruber. That's from some other movie. But
Die Hard.
Okay, Die Hard. But he drops it on the floor and immediately just grabs one that literally says, "Do not use."
Do not use. Use for what? What is this place?
Just a brain room. Just a
Do
bunch
not
of brains.
use abnormal brain.
You didn't give me the brain of Hans Gruber, did you? No, I didn't. What was the name on it? Abby.
Promise you won't get mad.
Yeah, promise you won't get mad. And you know, especially because this is classic, you know he's going to get mad at this.
Of course. You're
like,
just waiting.
Abby.
Like we're all watching the steam, the kettle reaching its boil as he's slowly. And then
Abby Normal.
There's so many of those. There's so many of those in this movie where we're just watching Gene slowly build until he cannot take it more.
Oh, yeah, they bring the monster to life. Peter Boyle, I love him in this movie. I like Peter Boyle, and like he's got one of those faces that is expressive in and of itself to where he doesn't really need to say a lot to be funny.
Yep.
And it works great for this role because he's just, there's a lot of faces he makes throughout it where I'm just like, oh, Peter Boyle. That's classic Peter Boyle. I only really know him from this and Everybody Loves Raymond, but let me tell you something. That's that guy.
Yeah, and I mean it's jumping all around now. It's just because we're highlighting him. It's so much more important, his casting with the end when he, as this in real life huge man like that. Like I remember when I first learned that he was the Frankenstein, and somebody pointed it out to me when I hadn't seen Young Frankenstein in a long time. But you automatically imagine, all right, somebody playing Frankenstein's a giant man, and then like he's playing an old grandpa on the sitcom, so you just don't picture them being a big giant man.
Yeah, I didn't picture him being that tall.
But then at the end, when he can be so sweet and eloquent, and like his voice and his manner, his tone is just radiating sweetness and kindness, and it makes his casting even that better. that much more important.
But yeah, he was great in this. Putting on a Ritz, I probably shouldn't have laughed, given it was just the juxtaposition to Gene Wilder's fashion sense. And they did the whole number. Like, it wasn't even just like a one-time thing and then we like pass on. No, he did like damn near the whole fucking song until the lights busted and fire bat thing. But him going around the village at first, because I didn't remember a lot or know a lot about this movie, I figured, okay, he's gonna make the monster, everyone's scared of it, but based on what they're doing so far, he's just gonna end up helping everybody. Because at first he meets the little girl and you're like scared for the little girl's life, but he's just like, I don't know what to do, but let's play seesaw. And just when her parents are like panicking, launches her into the room and she lands perfectly like in the bed.
I mean, she may be unconscious, but we don't know.
But she was in a sleeping position. Like, it's one thing to just land in the bed, but she's.
He ended up being. He's just afraid of fire. He ended up being nice with everyone. The blind man is. Do you realize who that is?
Apparently, Gene
hidden
Hackman.
under all that. He's hidden under all that makeup.
I saw in the credits it was Gene Hackman.
Yeah.
God, please just give me some kind of companionship. You are big. Okay. But the fucking giving him the soup.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even like you would expect a monster to attack.
Yeah,
and they are depicting this monster to be pretty docile.
Yeah, unless fire's involved.
Right.
It's not even
although he did try and choke out Gene Wilder a couple of times.
Well, yeah. I mean, he's probably confused.
Yeah.
Which he kind of elaborates on as it gets later into the film when he has that moment where he's like, this man has been nothing but nice. He saw something in me when no one else did. Which also leans credit to Gene Wilder's thing at one point when they recaptured him for like the umpteenth time and he's like, I'm gonna go into this room. Love is the only thing that can help fix this guy. I'm gonna show him some affection and do that. And it ended up being the truth. Because at the end, it was that love he showed him in that scene that made him go, leave that man alone. He has shown me nothing but care.
Essentially made a sacrifice play. I mean, it ended up working out and maybe even alluded to benefiting. But
at the very end, yes.
Yeah. But yeah, you don't know if that's gonna work.
Yeah.
So yeah, he essentially made a sacrifice play for his little baby boy.
And to go with the whole making the soundtrack work in universe, the fact that the main theme of the movie, on violin at least, was used to control the Frankenstein. So when it clicked in, he's like, you're not really questioning it, and they're like, wait, that music. Right. But it helped to make the scenes all throughout.
Yeah, we hadn't even mentioned that like right after he leaves the blind man, he comes across, I don't remember how. I'm blanking on how the scenario is that he comes across the fiance.
Oh, well, she shows up right after Gene inevitably cheats on her with the lab assistant.
Right.
Only for when they do their little intro thing to make it seem like she's been cheating on him with Igor. Because they have like the same exact conversation. But she's more into it than she was with Gene. And I'm like, oh, so they're both cheating. Okay, sure. But eventually, I think Frankenstein gets out of the lab and he just grabs her and like takes her out of the house. And then they have the, awkward, but we will accept it because it didn't seem to be regretted scene in the cave.
I mean, hey, he's a living being now.
Yeah.
So 6 or 7 times. I mean,
well, 6 or 7. Yeah. Once it's 6 or 7 times. Yeah, that's 6 or 7 times.
Kudos.
Yeah, kudos. Oh, my sweet mother.
She seemed to be enjoying herself.
She did.
As a character. So I applaud two people finding each other.
Yes.
In this crazy world.
But yeah, but it cracked me up because after that scene.
I mean, that's the point where it gets kind of. I think that's one of the points where it's like.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
1974. moving on. But they follow it up with the violin yet again, like you were saying, and they have him come back, and he's like, they're at the top of a wall, and I'm thinking he's just like, okay, just open the door for him to come in. No, they make him climb the wall up to them. I'm like, why are you making him climb this wall?
Get away from him! He wants to do it himself. So weird.
But yeah, we eventually get to the climax of the movie because people are like, okay, yeah, Frankenstein, he did bring back the monster, to go to your whole, this is a sequel thing. They remember the original, so they do not want another fucking monster in town.
They cut out the scene that explain that where the sheriff character explains that his arms are prosthetics because the original Frankenstein's monster ripped them out of his body.
That's why Kemp has the arms he does, because he had that whole gag.
Yeah, he's got mechanical arms because the original Frankenstein monster from Dr. Frankenstein's great grandfather ripped him out of his sockets. Ridiculous. They just cut it out of the movie. It's such a ridiculous thing, and the actor doing it plays it so fucking ridiculous, like over the top ridiculous. And then they cut out the scene explaining why he's doing it.
That's bad. That's even better, because it's just like, this dude's weird, but okay.
Yeah, that's what it ends up being. It's just like, this dude's fucking weird.
Like when he first showed up, my only note was Inspector Kemp ... because I'm like, this dude in and of himself, all I gotta do is mention him and you know exactly. And his weird accent, super fake accent,
super weird Germany English, Transylvania, whatever.
And it's meant to be misunderstood because in the whole what, and then he has to repeat himself gag. But yeah, that was great. He did a good job as well. But yeah, you get to the point to where young Frankenstein decides, I'm going to go ahead, do a transfer my mind into his, or transfer some of my intelligence into him to make him at least a normal-minded individual. And then everyone comes in. I did think it was funny with her, like, as they come in, no, just 7 more seconds. Like, you know what, y'all can do what y'all doing, but at least let us do this part. Right. 7 more seconds. And they take it up, but it ends up working out relatively fine. More or less, Frankenstein's intelligent now. The fiance Elizabeth is all about Frankenstein. She even adapts the Bride of Frankenstein hair. And the doctor, Frankenstein, gets with his assistant, Inga. And then she starts la-la-laing the violin song. Like, she's like, la 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 la, and he's... But, she asked him what he got out of the whole trade, and, after grunting, the camera kind of pans to the side as they get intimate, start doing spousal activities, and she starts singing, implying, it was beneficial for everybody.
Spousal activities. Don't bring that nonsense over here.
It sounds saying that. Only reason I did this because I know you saw the episode.
Yeah, I know what you were referencing. Doing spousal things. Sounds so gross.
Anyway, so yeah, that was fun.
They be fucking.
They be fucking. Everybody likes when the girls stay sucking.
But yeah, no, yeah, they heavily imply that Gene Wilder got Frankenstein's dick.
Yeah, they do imply that.
Yeah.
But yeah, any other moments and stuff? Because there was a lot to talk about because it was hilarious. But I know a lot of the main gags and scenes I wanted to touch on was here.
Yeah, I feel like we hit a lot of my favorites, and just in general, like, I mean, there's his comedy bits, and then there's Wilder giving a huge, a Shakespearean, Orwellian fucking monologue to the heavens as he slowly rises up. Like
that monologue and the one early in the movie where the kid mentions his grandfather. He's like, "But aren't you at least in a bit curious about this?" And he just eventually, "My grandfather's work was doo-doo." And he goes on a tirade about it. To your earlier point about like the repeated act of him like constantly steaming up to the top before he has to explode on somebody, because he does keep trying to de-escalate, like, all right, I'm not doing that, we're moving on with this. But aren't you... Hey, we've all been there at work, you know. You try to de-escalate a situation and eventually you get mad. It happens to everybody. Yeah, it happens to everybody. But yeah, so I guess that's Young Frankenstein. Final thought.
Yeah, I can't think. I can't think of any other spots that we didn't touch on. I love. I thought. So I mean, here's the thing. I really enjoy all the actors. I love Gene Wilder. I love what he's doing here. I love what Madeline Kahn. I love what Terry Garr. I love what Peter Boyle. Igor Marty Feldman is hilarious. I can recognize the talent and the craftsmanship of making this kind of film in 1974 when nobody was making this kind of film. And I get the daringness, the artistry that it took to force that decision upon the public who wanted their color films. Well into the 1974. Black and white is over a decade dead at this point. So I can say all those things and then still be kind of bored with this film. And it's just okay to me. I don't know why. All the puzzle pieces add up. But I don't know. It just doesn't slap for me.
And that's entirely fair. And to try and think about that, like, because I try to think about why it did work for me, and the only thing I can come to is because it was, though there are gags that have been used over and over and over and over again, it was still classic pioneer type deal, and it was still new to me to see it under that lens, and so I laughed. You know, I thought like a lot of the stuff was funny, but it was also still a first time thing. I'm not sure how many times you've seen this movie in the past. But
maybe it might be on a 4.
Okay,
maybe a 5.
Yeah, to go with the comedy is product of time and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unless it is the hittingest of hitting, it probably loses its it generally loses its sting on repeated watches. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean it will ever stop being funny. Like, we've been laughing about various parts as we've gone through this. But to your point about it being boring after a while, you're watching a nearly 50-year-old movie that you've seen 4 times. You're seeing the classic version of gags that have been used to high heaven 80 times, and you're watching it because you got to record a video this week. So, not saying that you hate doing this, because you clearly don't, but when you add all that stuff together, because like 3 of those 4 things I just said apply to me as well, but the main difference between me and you is it was a fresh experience for me, as opposed to the same jokes I've seen 4 or 5 times. And thus the stuff in between the gags that you remember and the things that stay, you're just waiting for the shit you find familiar, even if you're not actively doing so. Subconsciously, you're just waiting to get to the good part again. So the slower scenes. So I could see why this would be boring. And visually, while the set pieces were great and the costumes and all that for what they were going for, very well done, black and white already, especially when you live in a world where even your entertainment's in color now. Everything is constant sensory overload, color. So your eyes having to do less and just, okay, this is black and white, So it's not, you're not receiving as much visual stimulation, because of the monochromatic.
No, that's for sure true.
So I could see you being bored despite liking everything about the movie. But that would be my only guess. I can't speak for you, but that's the only thing I have is it's the repeated viewings. Yeah. Because comedy is so time specific, that plays into it as well. Like, there were other movies that we've covered on here where I was like, I remember finding this movie a lot more funny when I was younger.
I think if I'm honest, I think also a big part of it might be that I'm not a huge Mel Brooks fan.
Fair.
This is for sure the Mel Brooks movie that I like the most. And I don't really like Spaceballs.
To be fair, part of the reason
I'll reserve my full judgment on Blazing Saddles because it's been a long time since I've watched it, and we may cover it on the show someday.
Fair. Yeah, Spaceballs was one of those things where part of me, like I'm saying, like you were like, I thought you said you saw it. It's never been on my definite like rewatch type list, because the things I do remember, I don't think is nearly as funny as the Spaceballs fan force or think it is. Like, yes, I reference your Schwartz is as big as mine or whatever as a quote people use, but it has to talk about things that have been used to high heaven. I've heard that so many times. I didn't think it was that funny the first time. I don't really want to watch Spaceballs. I know John Candy's in it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I always picture his character with it, and I'm like, oh, fucking want to watch this. And so I just never watched Spaceballs. That's why I'm like, I don't think I have seen it all the way through. Because to your credit, I'm not the biggest Mel Brooks fan. I respect his work and the fact that he is a pillar of the comedic community, and especially after watching this movie. But you said it was also co-written by Gene Wilder, who I've already stated my appreciation of.
Yeah, there is some discussion in the histories. There's some moments where like you can find some interviews from Mel Brooks over the years where it may lean a little bit towards him making it more of his project, but most of the history books detail it as this is Gene Wilder's baby.
Gotcha.
Like he approached Mel with draft 1 of Young Frankenstein and said, I think we should make this movie. and then they built the future drafts together as a writing pair.
And from what I can tell, and especially the way Gene performs in this, I can believe that. Just based on what very little, and what admittedly, or not very, but what admittedly little I know of Gene Wilder, this seems to have more of his stamps, or his fingerprints all over it. Just with some of the gags and the way he's like, oh, I gotta do this, especially when he is the straight man in the scene. Or even if he's the fall guy, he's playing the fall guy kind of as a straight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because some fall guys are just, I'm Mr. Fall Guy. Look at me. Others, they think they're the straight man, but they're the fall guy in reality.
Yeah. Yeah. He had to. The biggest fight they got into was about the putting on the Ritz scene. Maybe the most famous scene of the film. Gene Wilder demanding it to stay in there, and then eventually Mel Brooks relented, knowing that he would cut it in the final edit. And then the crew on set the day of just absolutely got destroyed by it when they were filming, and so he was like, all right, god damn it, he was right.
But yeah, overall I will agree with you, the statement of the movie, except I wasn't as bored with it because it was fresh to me. I don't, to my point about my conjecture on your point, I'm not sure how often I'll rewatch this. If anything, it'll probably just be looking up the scenes I thought was funny just to see those scenes.
Yeah.
It's also very hard to come by unless you made out of money to have every streaming service on the planet.
Right.
So, which I am not. This channel ain't monetized.
I am.
Oh, look at you.
No.
Well.
No.
Yep.
See, here's what you do. You get a Visa prepaid card and you put like $20 on that motherfucker. And then you spend that down until it's got like 40 cents left on it or whatever. And then you have that card number for the rest of your life. And you take that and you put that into every free trial service imaginable. And then once that free trial's up, HBO Max is gone. But if you want to keep HBO Max around again, then you just go to Walgreens again and you buy yourself a new $20 debit Visa card. You spend the $20 until there's just a little bit left on it. And then you throw that free trial up again after creating a quick Gmail account. Here's what you do, kids.
Genius. So yeah, that's Young Frankenstein and some life advice. Anyway, so Bill, next week we're watching something not quite a classic, but and maybe a fun watch. We're Asters going to a particular well that I go to. Dumb action movies. Maybe not dumb. Dumb is a harsh word, but action movie.
Dumb?
That's
action
why I said.
movies.
Yeah, that's why I said dumb's a harsh word, but action movie. Popcorn. We're watching Cradle to the Grave, starting the late DMX.
DMX.
Yeah. We'll see if he's gonna give us a lot of entertainment to talk about. In other news, if you want to be entertained, we can give you lots on this channel. Go see the other episodes we've got on here. You can also find me elsewhere on YouTube on the Whatever We Want podcast. New episodes every week, every Wednesday. I do that show with a good friend of mine, a friend of the show, Super Jazz.
Super Jazz.
Thank you very much, as nature intended, as he is wont to say. I also have a Twitter and Twitch as Giotavi. That is Giotavi. Come on in, stop on by. Bill, you got anything you want to say to the folks?
No.
All right. Well, folks, thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Adios.